Well, a higher floor guy when he's healthy, at least, is Chris Godwin. I believe this was another Matty newsbreaker item, calling Chris Godwin back to the Bucs. Connor, he gets 3 years, $66 million. No surprise here, perhaps. There's a lot of money, though, for a guy coming off a serious injury.
And it sounds like he passed up a lot of money from the New England Patriots to stay, which we love. I think we'd rather see Chris Godwin keep things, in check with Baker Mayfield, a place that he's had a ton of success. And obviously the Bucs felt the same way. So I think this is obviously the best outcome. Now, coming back from the injury, I'm going to kind of monitor how much he does in the OTAs in camp and see how ready he is to go out of the gate. But I think you want Godwin in a place where he's familiar and successful.
To me, this is the best case scenario for so many reasons. Obviously, familiarity with the team, with Baker, with the offense, because even though Liam Cohen's gone, it's going to be the same basic offensive system that Canales and Cohen have run the last 2 years. And no team has probably more insight into his health than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So the fact that Tampa Bay was like, here's $44 million guaranteed. Total contract 66, but it's 44 guaranteed, tells you that they're not concerned about his long-term health, that they know it better than anyone else. Like if New England had been, you're like, well, they're desperate and who knows.
Right, we just got to get him in here.
Maybe they just got to add him here. But the fact that Tampa Bay was willing to commit that kind of money to him after that injury kind of tells you what they think about this guy. Prior to his injury last year, fifth best wide receiver in fantasy football, almost 20 points per game. He was actually leading the NFL in receptions per game. He was third in yards per game. All in on Chris Godwin this year.
I think I think once you become injured, that kind of hurts your price a little bit, but I think he's going to be like a nice little value in these drafts. Mike Evans will go ahead of him in fantasy drafts, but I think Chris Godwin will be a nice value.
He's the rare receiver I'd actually handcuff with Jalen McMillan. Yep. Like if I would draft Jalen McMillan towards the end of my drafts if I took Godwin early, knowing if I lose Godwin again, because guys get hurt all the time and he gets hurt, McMillan will step right into that role and be productive.
Yep. Another potential value guy coming off, veteran guy coming off a year of injuries is Christian Kirk, Matthew, former Jags wide receiver, traded to the Texans in exchange for a 2026 seventh, so not much at all. Do you think there's anything left in the Kirk tank?
I actually do, right? I mean, Houston. On Houston, Stephon Diggs played in the slot a decent amount, and he was wide receiver 16 on a points per game basis. We don't think Tank Dell's going to play this year, and we don't think Stephon Diggs is going to come back to Houston. So I do think Kirk is kind of an interesting kind of flyer here. My guess is he'll be in the 40 to 45 range for me once I do all my positional ranks. But I think there's some 12-team, 3-wide receiver league upside there for Kirk to have something left in the tank. I will say in my 25 rumors that I heard at the Combine, I put it, I didn't think about the Texans because I said Christian Kirk and Evan Ingram were going to be released by the Jaguars, and I was half right. I was right that both guys are no longer on the team, but I forgot that anytime a team says, hey, we're going to release a guy, then the Texans are like, oh, what if we just give you a seventh instead? They did that with Joe Mixon. Now they did it with Joe.
Same thing.
Don't give it to us for free. We'd much rather send a seventh. But listen, maybe it's smart because maybe they think they can't recruit there. And, if Kirk's on the free agent market, maybe he gets more.
I think this makes sense because if you just take a step back logically, they move on from Bobby Slowick. What was his alleged crime? Well, that he runs the ball too much. So you expect that they're going to throw the ball more. And Christian Kirk is going to be wide receiver 2, most likely, for C.J. Stroud. And that's
he gets to play the slot because Nico Collins is a perimeter monster.
Yep.
So you know where he's going to play.
And given how bad their offensive line is, he's probably going to have to get rid of the ball quickly. Because, Larry Matunzel is now a commander. Tell the Commanders.
No offensive line. Literally.
It's brutal.
It's wild.
It was a bad one last year, and then they've got rid of the
best
only guys
player
that
on
can
it.
play.
Yeah.
Right. Including Tunsil. They got rid of the best guy on the team, and then anyway, it's a weird one.
Lawrence, the Ravens signed DeAndre Hopkins, formerly of the Chiefs naturally, to a 1-year contract. This is a very Ravens-y type of signing, kind of a version of them signing Odell a couple of years ago, going for the big-name guys perhaps on the other side. Do you think that D-Hop can make a significant impact in Baltimore?
I think it's good for regular football purposes because it gives Lamar another guy to go to in the red zone. DeAndre Hopkins is automatically the guy with the best hands on the team. Saw him catch a pass in the Super Bowl, but fantasy, let's not get crazy here. He's behind Rashad Bateman. Right. He's behind Zay Flowers. He's behind both the tight ends. So when it comes to that, so you got to account for DeAndre Hopkins as a defense when you get in that red area. So if anything, this helps Lamar. I don't know how much more you help a guy who threw for 4,040 touchdowns, but in the red zone, DeAndre Hopkins has some value there.
Yep. I think it just went a little bit under the radar, kind of just the steps that Rashad Bateman took towards the end of last season, and that combined with Zay Flowers, who no one brings up, like Zay Flowers didn't play against Buffalo
It was huge.
in the divisional round. That made a huge difference. But you think that D-Hop is going to be the third option.
Yeah, you get reliable veteran depth, right? You know they want to scheme touches to Zay. You like some of the boom weeks that Bateman brings. He just needs to be healthy. Rashad Bateman can play. That's not the question. So now you get a guy that if one of those two get hurt, and maybe they are a little injury prone, he could step into a number 2 role.
It'll be interesting to see if Mark Andrews is still on this team.
I know, that's kind of what that does for
I was going to say behind the 2 tight ends as long as Andrews is still on the team, but whatever. I ain't going to do all that. But, DeAndre Hopkins.
All right, other wide receivers that signed in free agency. Tutu Atwell goes back to the Rams. Diami Brown gets a lot of money to go to the Jags. Hollywood Brown back with Kansas City. Matt Collins changes teams in the AFC. He's going to the Patriots. Josh Palmer maybe replacing the Matt Collins role. He goes to Buffalo.
I'm in on that one.
Yeah.
That one's the most interesting of these guys on this list.
Well, he could be wide receiver 2 for Josh Allen.
Right.
Yes.
And he can win down the field. He's an underrated player. I like Josh Palmer a lot. And they paid him $12 million a year, so they think his role is significant.
Yeah, who knows what's going on with Amari Cooper? They have Keon Coleman there, but they have Khalil Shakir. But you could see a scenario where it's Palmer and Keon Coleman on the outside and Shakir in the middle, and that's basically going to be their starting 3 wide receivers there as well. Darius Slayton goes back to your Giants. They're Connor Rogers.
Yes.
Exciting for him.
Felt like they've tried to get rid of him like 4 times throughout his career.
He is a lifer.
And then I was like, I'll just stick around.
He's the face of the franchise.
He is. This is his biggest contract.
It's him and Dexter Lawrence.
It used to be Jay's Giants, but now Jay's changed his alliance to the Chargers, which we'll get
I'm a Chargers
in a
man.
second.
Oh, okay.
I got a Super Bowl ticket on them, so we'll see who my team is next year.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and RotoWorld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest RotoWorld fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.